Hey, it's Mason here from Graphics Master with your 5th tutorial, and in this tutorial I'm going to mess around with filters and show you how to mess around with that a little bit. So let's just quickly go through artistic here. Colored pencil, you go to filter, artistic, colored pencil, and that kind of does that kind of effect. Most of it's just messing around with these as well to find what you like. And the artistic ones, you'll see what it does there. Not the best for this picture, but it looks good in some other pictures. Under filter, the artistic ones are the most fun to mess around with. I like cutout personally, but I don't. It's not. It doesn't really work well for this one. I like it better on real images and stuff. It makes them look like comic book pictures, kind of. Let's go down. Film grain. This one kind of makes it look. Well, you can see what I mean, right? It does this kind of effect where it's all pointillism. Plastic wrap, I really like this one. See here what it does. And you can mess around with this here. You can zoom out or zoom in with that. And it basically finds the edges of the picture that are sticking out the most from the background. And it does this plastic wrap kind of effect around it, which is really cool. Another one I like is neon glow. If I change the color here, nice neon colors, about blue there. You can mess around with that, you see. And that'll do different things depending on the settings you put in. And rough pastels. This one is really useful for doing rain effects on the sky. That kind of thing. And you want your scaling to be pretty low. And you can do that kind of thing. And it really makes skies look good. If you want to look, it's raining. It'll make it look like there's actually rain coming down and stuff like that. And there's not much more for this that I can show you really. Because most of it's just messing around with stuff. And that's just a smudge kind of thing. So let's get out of artistic and go into blur. One of my favorite blurs is Gaussian blur. And you can see what that does is it kind of blurs it in all directions and blends it in more. So if you want to do like a smaller blur over here and something's not blending very well, it'll look like it's blended in a little bit more. That's really cool. I like that one. And my other favorite blur is motion blur. This is good for when you have like an airplane that's supposed to be traveling really fast in a picture. And basically, say you have an airplane that's facing, well, it'll automatically set the default to like horizontal. But say you have an airplane that's facing upwards, like it's taking off at about that angle. You're gonna want to set this dial here to the angle of your image in the direction that you want it to be moving, and it'll kind of blur it that way. And depending on what distance you put in, you see, it'll blur it more, so it looks like it's kind of moving that way in either direction. That one's really cool. So there are some other blurs you can mess around with. Those are fun, but some other cool ones are distort, glass effect. It kind of does like a watery glass effect. That one's really cool to mess around with in different pictures. And distort, ocean ripple. It's kind of the same thing, only a little bit different. And you can mess around with those a little bit more. Looks really cool. Depending on what you do. Some of them are really good. Now, another one that I like is render. And the one I like the most in this is lens flare. I use this for suns and stuff. If you move this around here, you can just drag this around the screen. You cannot move this after you've placed it, so yeah. So it'll start off at, like, you can mess around with the brightness up here. And watch as I slowly, I'm going to put it on the red part here. Watch as I slowly increase the brightness. See, it gets brighter and bigger. And eventually at about maybe 179, 180. It kind of looks like the sun. So I use this a lot in skies for the sun. Also under lens type, you can mess around with what type you want it to be. That looks kind of weird for this, but I like this one here. and that it's got all these shapes around it and cool stuff. That looks kind of like the sun. And then from there, you can also mess around with that, like if you want to do plastic wrap over that. See, it kind of wraps around that. You can mess around with settings and stuff. Another cool filter thing that I like to add is Sketch. I like Sketch. It's got some cool ones like water paper. See what it kind of does, like a water paper effect there. And texture is really cool as well. You can do mosaic tiles. You can mess around with that. That looks pretty cool. And also stained glass is another cool one. And also you'll notice that when I do this, all the lines in the middle are white. Well, if I go back and I change my foreground color to red, like there, and I do it again, it'll be red. That all depends on your foreground color. And you can mess around. Artistic is the most fun to mess around with. Well, thanks for watching this video. Come back and watch other tutorials when you're ready.